I now call the East Lyme Zoning Commission regular meeting of January 23rd, 2025 to order at 7:29 p.m. If we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call. I'm here, Mr. Peck.
Yep.
Ms. Markovitz is not here. Mr. Liska, would you care to fill in? Thank you. I believe it's your turn. Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Ms. Kalal?
Yes.
Ms. Jet Harris?
Here.
Is Ms. Susko here tonight? All right. Ms. Uhas? Thank you. Mr. Mulholland is not here tonight. Ms. LaRocco's here. Thank you. And I don't believe Ms. Hardy's back yet. No. Okay. We'll begin with public hearing. We have a continuation of application of William R. Sweeney, Esquire, attorney for John and Sally Kelsey, for a special permit to modify a legal pre-existing non-conforming camping resort under Section 12.1.1A from seasonal to year-round operations. And Attorney Sweeney, you're here representing them?
I am. Madam Chairwoman, earlier today I submitted, at the request of Mr. Mulholland, a request to withdraw this application. I don't know if you had been alerted to it or not, but yesterday Mr. Mulholland had asked us to provide a site plan for this 54-year-old campground. The original approvals go back to 1971, but the town's files have been lost. We do have a copy of the original 1971 approval. The letter approval from the then Planning Commission, which actually covered and controlled development, but the site plan has not been located. Your regulations require with a special permit to have a site plan. We, in conversations with Mr. Mahan, we didn't think we needed one because we're not proposing any changes, physical changes, but he felt yesterday that it was important that there was some type of a plan for the commission to look at least of existing conditions. So at his request and to be cooperative, my client consented. Because we've been on your agenda for a while, we've decided to withdraw. He is in touch with a surveyor today to try to put together a site plan, and we hope to reapply in the near future so that you can evaluate his request to go year-round.
Okay, well, thank you for the update.
Thank you.
Do we need them to close the public hearing?
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Now we'll move on to the regular meeting.
Forgot you were here.
You forgot to say?
I was going to second it, but I forgot. You're
Step
quick.
it up.
You're
Step it
quick.
up,
You're
Jen.
quick. I can't. You're quick.
First, we have a continuation of application of James Bernardo, agent for Thomas Gardner, for modification to previously approved coastal area management CAM site plan for property identified as 7 North Drive, Assessor Map 08.2, Lot 154. This was continued at the applicant's request, and I believe, Jessica, do we have a memo from Bill on this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Nancy, would you like to read that?
Yes. Memo to East Lyme Zoning Commission from William Mulholland, zoning official, the coastal area management site plan of 7 North Drive, Niantic, date January 22nd, 2025. On May 2nd, 2024, the zoning commission conducted a CAM site plan review to construct 2 single-family dwellings on number 7 and number 11-13 North Drive in Niantic. The application was represented by Jim Bernardo, a land surveyor. Upon review, the commission approved the site plan for both properties. In July of 2024, a building permit was issued to construct a new single-family dwelling on the 7 North Drive property. Construction began immediately thereafter. A few weeks later, I conducted a field inspection of the property to assess compliance with the approved plan. The inspection revealed that the foundation install and rough site grading had been completed. In addition, a soil erosion control retaining wall had also been constructed along the northerly property line. A review of the approved plan in comparison with the existing site conditions raised several zoning compliance questions. Subsequent discussions with the owner's agents revealed the existing site conditions were not in compliance with the zoning commission approval. As a result of this finding, I ordered corrective action to ensure compliance. This could be accomplished by using one of two methods. One, by lowering the foundation and regrading the site, or two, by applying to the commission for a new CAM application, which would address the new grades and foundation elevation. I note here that the soil and erosion control wall has already been removed. Technically, this structure would initiate an automatic referral to Connecticut DEEP for additional review. The applicant has chosen to reapply to the Zoning Commission for a new application upon which the board may approve, modify, or deny. Attorney William Sweeney is here and will give a brief presentation.
Thank you.
Attorney Sweeney.
Thank you. Good evening. For the record, my name is Bill Sweeney. I'm a land use attorney at the law firm of Tobin Carberry in New London, and I want to thank you for having me here tonight. To some extent, I'm filling in for Mr. Bernardo tonight, my client's surveyor, who's not able to attend. I appear before you on behalf of my client, Tom Gardner, who's in the audience with his wife, Susan, tonight, who's applied for this modification to their previous CAM approval for 7 North Drive. As you heard in the Mr. Mulholland's report, back in May of last year, my client and his daughter, Heather, obtained coastal area site plan approval from this commission for 2 conforming residences on these 2 lots on North Drive, which they intend to build and occupy by their family. The 2 lots are not waterfront parcels, but they are located in the AE floodplain, west of and above the VE and the Limwa floodplains that are associated and encompass the area to the north and east where the Niantic Bay Yacht Club is. As you heard, the construction on the residence began last summer. The approved plans for 7 North Drive had the basement slab of the house to be set at 8 feet above sea level. Unfortunately, as the excavator began to dig into the footings for the foundation, they encountered a very silty material and large table-sized boulders, basically all throughout the lot. So they had to take out a lot more material than they did. And when they did, they also found that it was high groundwater, much higher than they expected on the lot, and it would interfere with the foundation. So a decision was made in consultation with their engineer and the building official to excavate out those unsuitable materials and replace them with crushed gravel to provide a stable base for the foundation footings. That work, though, raised the finished basement slab of the elevation from 8 feet, which is what you approved in May, to anywhere between 8.75 and 9 feet above sea level. And it required some regrading around the foundation itself just to accommodate that lift of 3/4 to a foot. Fundamentally, that change in foundation elevated the overall building to about a foot taller than what you approved in May. The building official was aware of the minor adjustment, but my client did fail to come back and seek a formal CAM approval change. And it wasn't intentional, it wasn't deliberate, it was just simply an innocent oversight. As the construction advanced into the fall, as I said, they took all these table-sized boulders out of the hole. And so my client found himself with a pile of them, and an unexpected pile. And so what they did was they thought it would be acceptable to try to reuse them on site and place those boulders along the property line with the yacht club to create a nice, attractive wall. But I think Mr. Mulholland, when he came out, saw the wall, and in addition to the issue with the foundation, and he had a concern with that. I was hired around that time to sort of get involved and try to help remedy the situation based on my relationship with Mr. Mulholland. And I think Mr. Mulholland's primary concern was that stone wall could be considered a flood and erosion control structure, which is regulated by DEP. We are in the AE floodplain, and you can put fill in that floodplain, but the fact that the wall was right near the edge of the VE zone, while we certainly didn't intend to have it be a flood and erosion control structure, if you read the state statute, it's a structure that is either intended or may have the effect of. And I think Mr. Mulholland properly expressed a concern. We had our engineer review it, and he agreed with Mr. Mulholland that the good faith attempt to try to use stones was really not something that was really appropriate for that location. So we immediately ceased building the wall. We've deconstructed it. We regraded the land between the house, and I've got a couple pictures. I'll just pass them. You can look, just so you can. This was taken from this week, so you can see the site today. We regraded between the house and the yacht club property back to the slope that was in the original plan. And we had not done any other site work until we got approval from you. All those boulders we've agreed have to come out as part of the remedy work. We also, Mr. Mulholland asked us to come before the commission to modify the approval for the slightly taller basement slab, and that's why we're here tonight. The finished basement slab elevation, as shown on the modified plan, is now 9 feet. That's what it's set at right now, so it now mirrors what's built. It's 1 foot higher than we had shown it in May. And we have the revised site plan that we submitted to you. Mr. Mulholland also asked us to certify the overall height of the residence to make sure it still met zoning. This is the R12 zone. You can be 30 feet above average finished grade. We actually had him go out and take a shot, and we're at 29.3 feet. So we're 0.7 feet below the maximum. So we're completely compliant with the zoning requirements. And so, tonight, this is a pretty straightforward application. On behalf of my client, he would like to apologize to the commission for not getting the modification before he started doing this work. Mr. Gardner has served in law enforcement his whole life. He has a distinguished career with the U.S. Secret Service and the Department of Homeland Security. I can tell you law compliance and making sure he's in compliance with the law is his highest priority, and he asked me to get involved to make sure to resolve this and do it the right way, and that's what we're here for tonight. He certainly didn't realize that very minor change in the foundation required reapplication to you. And he thought by working with the building official that certainly that you would hear about it or he'd be told. It just didn't happen. And so tonight, we're here to try to remedy the situation. And I want to thank Mr. Mulholland for working with us on this issue and allowing us to close that building in, as you can see in the picture, so the work wasn't lost when the winter weather came. So we've been working really cooperatively with the town. We believe we brought the property into compliance, and we just need your blessing tonight for that additional foot of height in the basement slab.
So that's kind of like asking once the cart has left the barn.
Of course.
The house is up,
Yeah.
and we need to approve it in order for them to move in.
We do, but what I'm asking you to approve is completely within your ability to approve. So we meet all your FEMA floodplain requirements. You can put fill in the AE floodplain, so it's a little bit higher, and we did that because of the groundwater situation that was unexpected. And we've demonstrated that the overall height of the building still meets the height requirements for the zone. So everything meets the regulations. Ms. Kalal, 100%. The second we knew that there was a groundwater issue and that we had to lift the slab, the first thing that should have happened was to come back to this commission. We were working with the building official, and it's just an innocent mistake. They felt that they were talking with the town, but as you know, there are different arms of the town and different obligations. So we satisfied the building official. What we didn't do was modify the CAM approval before we continued. And as soon as we were made aware that that was an issue and we had to come back, we took immediate action to reapply.
My only question you answered was how tall was the house? So
Yeah.
to me, you've made all the fixes, and I'm fine with it. Any other questions from the?
Yeah, I don't think it would probably matter anywhere else but right near the water. It just.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is the yacht club has come back to us.
Yeah.
I was just talking to Mr. Gardner before the meeting tonight. He said, they asked, when are you putting the stone wall back? We loved it. It looked beautiful. And we're we can't because the DEP regulates those. So what we've done is brought the site into compliance with your regulations and DEP regulations. Is it different than it was in May? Yeah, but it's a foot difference, and it was for good cause, and we still meet all your regulations.
My feeling is maybe a little bit out of order, but had it come before us in the right order, it would have had the same results.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Are we ready to vote? Are there any more questions?
No, I'm ready. I'll make a motion if everybody's ready. So I'll move to approve the application of James Bernardo, agent for Thomas Gardner, for modifications previously approved. CAM site plan for property identified as 7 North Drive, assessor map, etc. Reasons: applicant is consistent with all applicable goals and conditions of the CAM Act, and applicant has taken all reasonable measures to mitigate any adverse impacts of the proposed activity on both coastal resources and future dependent uses.
Is there a second?
I second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Oh, you're an abstention?
Well,
Or not
I'm a
opposition?
no.
No.
I have more questions, but it's too late
There's
to
a
ask
motion on the
questions.
floor. So how would your vote like to go?
I'm a no.
5-1-0.
Thank you so much for your time tonight. We really appreciate the courtesy extended. Thank you.
Okay, next. We will not do the camping park since that's been continued. Has everyone looked at the minutes? Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes
So
from
Tracy,
the,
second.
what was the date of it?
1/9/25.
I second.
9/25.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? 600. No old business tonight. We have subcommittee reports. Mr. Peck?
Push and build to get that CA zone, Boston Post Road.
I think it's time we just stop this subcommittee stuff, lack of activity.
Bessie's down?
We'll get it.
Okay.
Yard
Okay,
sale.
our next subcommittee, I see, we're going to have an update here.
Nancy's passing out the,
Okay,
one of the letters,
thank you.
well, 2 letters. So, are we ready?
Yeah,
Okay. So Nancy and I have gathered more information for this commission, quite a bit of information, preparation for possibly having a public hearing to get the vote for it. So we're going to start off with some correspondence. The first one is from Mark Christensen. He dropped it off and he would like us to read it. Which one are we starting with? Let me see. Right here. We'll start with this one.
Okay.
So it's a letter dated October 17th, 2024. Hello, zoning commissioners. I'm Mark Christensen, and I had a recent application before zoning, which I withdrew before it went to a public hearing, and I briefly wanted to explain my actions. Although the application was withdrawn, the reasons behind the application are still present. I withdrew due to the cost I would need to pay for certified mailings, as explained to me by Mr. Mulholland, as well as the fact that the town staff needed to send documentation to get a reply from neighboring towns and a state agency. At the time for that was now limited. So now for the reasons behind the application. The 2 most important natural resources in the town of East Lyme are water and water. The first is drinking water, which comes from aquifers which are fed by their surrounding watersheds and much of the town depends on. The second is the water that ultimately flows into the Niantic River from a watershed north of the river. Much of it is in East Lyme. The Niantic River is integral to supporting many businesses in Niantic and brings many tourists who spend money at boatyards for fishing excursion and beachgoers, restaurants, etc. It is important that this water be kept clean and viable to serve as an attraction for people who spend money at local businesses, which in turn support the tax base. I believe both are in jeopardy and partial remedy lies with the zoning commission. Several years ago, the town adopted new aquifer protection standards, and the protections to water in the aquifer that were once standard have been reduced. A smaller area of aquifer protection was created based on some suggestions from the state of Connecticut. It really amounted to wellhead protection, not aquifer protection. This change, however, allowed for development of lots of impervious surfaces with more won the way, and this will produce runoff that will carry road salt and other contaminants that eventually can make its way to the groundwater and bring with it various pollutants. Specifically, sodium has been found in increasing levels each year in town wells, and the trend line shows a continual upward projection. In fact, 4 of 6 wells shown sodium levels higher than the accepted standard of 28 ppm. Not surprisingly, the wells with the most rapid increase in sodium levels are the wells in the aquifer protection area, which includes the area under I-95 currently under construction. As a side note, when the new Exit 74 interchange was being proposed and reviewed at the town meeting, I asked Connecticut DOT official and engineers to design a spill mitigation system into the plan in order to prevent spills resulting from accidents getting into the aquifer. I pointed out that the New London Water Authority was required by the Connecticut Department of Health to design a spill mitigator system along 395 if they were to connect the Miller's Pond water into their water system. Former First Selectman Mark Nickerson also stated that he had asked DOT officials for such a precaution. Former State Rep. Holly Cheeseman also asked the Connecticut Department of Health to intervene and get DOT officials to include a spill mitigation design into the exit and entrance ramps, which are directly over the aquifer protection area. Requests were all denied, and when I queried state officials as to why they couldn't accomplish this task, they finally answered, because there is no regulation that says we must. It should be clear that we cannot rely on state officials to protect drinking water in East Lyme. You should also know the tougher EPA standard for drinking water are soon to be enacted, specifically the acceptable levels of PFASs, also known as forever chemicals, as they don't degrade and always find their way into groundwater. Finally, many people in town have felt secure knowing that we can access water from the New London Reservoir system during the summer months when the local population increases due to summer visitors. What many don't know is that the agreement with New London also mentions that East Lyme must send potable water to New London that meets their standards. If East Lyme doesn't have satisfactory water to send in winter, we won't get water from New London in the summer. In reviewing the minutes of the Aquifer Protection Agency, it looks as though that group has not met in a year, and other than approving business registrations, other issues regarding aquifer protection that I've outlined are not dealt with. It seems that needs to change in order to best protect East Lyme drinking water. In comparing East Lyme Aquifer Protection Area with New London Water Authority, we see that in New London Reservoir System, large tracts of land that feed the reservoir are fenced off, and hiking, fishing, and boating or trespassing are not allowed. In East Lyme, we have some of our most heavily developed and traveled and paved over areas within the Aquifer Protection Zone. It seems inevitable that these areas will either need some expensive remediation to provide drinking water or to be abandoned when they can't meet the required standards a few years away from now. We do, however, have a partial answer to the problem in the 4-mile aquifer, which is currently untapped. Better protections should be put in place through zoning. The same is true for the Niantic River, and that can be protected by protecting the watershed in East Lyme that feeds the river. The Niantic River Watershed Committee has done studies on that issue, and more protection is needed, especially if a large multifamily development occurs along the river. These reports are available from the town. I hope you are able and interested in acting upon this information. I suggest that a subcommittee of zoning be established and protection of land in the north end of town be considered as reasonable solution to these issues. I think members of zoning and conservation commissions would work well on a subcommittee consulting with staff from the town water department, and I will volunteer for such a subcommittee. I do believe the future of East Lyme depends on action taken now. I am submitting just a small bit of data as documentation of my concerns. More is available for your considerations. Thank you for your service to the town and for considering my suggestion. I hope a zoning change, I can't read his handwriting. I hope a zoning change and public hearing can be held to address this issue in the near future. Mark Christensen, 66 Grassy Hill Road. And that's number one. Is this Penny's? You want to read Penny's? This is from Penny up here.
Okay.
You got that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so now we have a memo from Penny Howell, who's the director of the Conservation Commission, to Ben North about the sodium levels in the well water. Thank you for providing the commission with sodium concentration readings for all East Lyme water wells 2005 to 22. I have examined the data and the full commission discussed this analysis at their October meeting. We offer the following comments. Although the system averaged repeatings are currently slightly above the health guidelines for 28 parts per million, the readings have increased significantly since 2005. Most importantly, individual wells show much different patterns of exposure, and all but 2 wells have significantly increasing trends since 2000. All but 2 have current readings above the health guideline of 28 parts per million. Well 6 and well 1A have shown the greatest increase over the time series. Joining their data in 2022 has masked their individual upward trends. Both wells are increasing about 1.5 parts per million per year. Well number 4 levels are the most variable and had the highest concentration of the time series, 42.8 parts per million recorded in 2018. Levels have been above the health guideline for the past 6 years. Although well 2A levels are below the health guideline and show no trend, nearby well 3A, 3B levels have been above the guideline for several years and show an increasing trend of almost 1 part per million per year, having doubled over the time series. Well number 5 is the only well north of I-95 and has recorded the lowest sodium levels, much below the health guidelines, but also showing an increasing trend. Okay.
Western Connecticut University hosted a webinar October 17, 2022, presenting sodium data trends in Connecticut surface and groundwater. Dr. Victoria Kelly presented decades of data showing that road salt contamination is a statewide problem and about 90% of sodium in lakes and groundwater comes from road salt, with the rest from natural resources. Her studies have also determined that it takes about a decade to flush salt from a system after the sources stop. In other words, continued application will always result in some
Sodium chloride.
sodium chloride, I was going to say that, but I want to make sure I was right, leaching into the ground, which enhances leaching of heavy metals, lead, cadmium, chromium, iron, etc., into lower ground levels where water is drawn. The variables determining how much road salt leaches into neighboring wells are distance from any size road application and the total surface cover of impervious surface, roofs, driveways, parking lots, rock, I can't make up that word, outcroppings, etc. This webinar ended with a listing of best management practices. All road salt is stored completely covered from the weather. Roads are brined before a storm hits, so loose salting is not needed or so only minimally applied. Road salt is discharged in a predetermined computer-controlled manner, and amounts used are recorded to excessive amounts can be identified. Efficient plow blades are used with live edges that closely meet the contours of the road. We are asking if practices in East Lyme follow these guidelines. If some are not, please outline what practices are followed. Solutions to impediments to following these guidelines include consolidating services with neighboring towns to share expensive resources, and the town offering training for private contractors so they are aware of the consequences of haphazard application. Establishing through zoning restricted salt use areas with posted signs and enforcement on roads within or near the established aquifer protection areas which surround town wells will minimize short-distance salt leaching and educate the traveling public about the vulnerability of the drinking water supply. The Commission acknowledges and appreciates the time and effort that Public Works put into the town roads safe to travel. Solution to this health risks are doable. We appreciate a timely reply before the next winter season. East Lyme Commission for the Conservation of Natural Resources. Penny Howell Heller, Secretary, CCNR, Art Carlson, Chair, CCNR, Mark Christensen, Don Danila, Lori Ashburn, Harvey Beeman, Marjorie Meekoff, Roseanne Hardy's the ex officio. Note, red line equals health guideline of 28 ppm, blue line equals the year's salt value, and the dotted line is the trend of the equation shown. And that's for a diagram that is here, and it shows a graph. We have 6 graphs here, and the bottom one is very interesting because the bottom one, it's north of 95, and it's the north end of town, and that's the only one that is clearly plain. So, with that being, so do you have anything else you want to read? Correspondence? We're good?
We're good.
Okay. So, with this all being said, there was, when Mark Christensen came and he spoke, it kind of got, it kind of perked our interest to see what we could do, if there was anything that we could do. Water, our natural resources of water is extremely important. Once it's gone and it's contaminated, we're not going to get it back. In the POCD for the town of East Lyme, and what we're trying to do by gathering this information, once again, is so we can have enough data to show these commissioners so that they will vote, hopefully so we can move to a public hearing. This is the process that we have to go through to do it. And we also, too, have to talk to the attorney, which we're going to be, but he knows that we want to talk to him, but we can't right now. We have to wait until he's available, Ann, can you tell us what time it's going to be?
Right now, there's a tentative date of February 20th.
Okay. So we have something else that we would like to also submit. So in the POCD, it's a very important, interesting document that many people in town, experts that have put it together, and it's a very interesting read. It's only like 133 pages, but it says so much, and what it does is that it puts all these things in place, all the elements in place that helps us as a town do what we need to do. And interestingly enough, Waterford has done this. They increased their tracts of land to 5 acres, and they did it back in the 90s. So, and the property that we're trying to, try to encompass in this is up against Waterford. So we're trying to do what we can do. So here is another map that shows and this will all be printed. Anybody wants to get copies of this, they can see Jessica, right, Jess, and you can give them these. Okay. All this stuff goes in the minutes, by the way, for anybody that needs to know. This is an environmentally sensitive natural resource map. And it clearly shows where our wetlands lie and why it's so important that we have something in place where we can redistrict, upzone, make the lots, make it bigger. Right now in that area we have 1 and 2 acre lots. There's a question of variances because what we don't want to do is stop the people in the town who live in the area that we're talking about, stop them from adding on to their house. They're either on a 1 acre or they're on 2 acres. We're not trying to do that. But as Norm Peck said at the last meeting, we can write stuff in there and for variances and stuff. So we're thinking about all the things that can be done. So the mission statement for the POCD is very interesting. Mission statement: safety, security, economic stability, beauty, maintenance of property, values, and infrastructure are all important to the long-term physical development of East Lyme. As such, the mission of East Lyme is to create and sustain a healthy community, one whose residents have stability and security with the preservation of natural resources for future generations. Articulated through the Planning Commission and staff, the vision explains the intent of the town and the community values for the 2020 Plan of Conservation and Development, which we refer to as a POCD, as adopted by the Planning Commission. So it says, this is page 12 of the POCD that I'm reading off of. The one thing is achieve a balance between conservation and development. The next one is ensure that changes enhance East Lyme. And the last one is carefully balance the need for economic development and land use with the preservation of recreational, scenic, historic, cultural, agricultural, and natural resources. So it's in the POCD. All this stuff is in the POCD, and it's more than just a guideline. Some people will say it's a guideline. It's more than a guideline. There's a lot of people that put this all together, and they're experts in their field, and we do have a committee in town, which is the Natural Resource Committee, and they had an input in this too. So it talks about the vision. So I'm going to read the vision only because it once again talks about our natural resources, which is a part of the convincing argument that we're trying to show here. So under the vision part of the POCD, it says, located on Long Island Sound, East Lyme is a coastal New England town, enhanced by its additional frontage along the Niantic River and the diversity of its population and land uses. East Lyme is characterized by beach communities, a traditional seaside village along Route 156, the busy commercial corridor along Route 161, quiet residential neighborhoods, vast open spaces, and substantial rural character. East Lyme's natural setting includes expansive water views and winding rural roads through the more rugged, wooded upland terrain. East Lyme's people come together in a sense of community that supports activities ranging from youth sports to community parades. In order to achieve a balance between conservation and development, East Lyme's future challenge will be balancing the many facets of East Lyme, protecting and enhancing natural resources, community character, and overall quality of life in an environmentally responsible way, directing future growth so that no one aspect of the town overwhelms the others. Therefore, the vision of East Lyme is to ensure that changes enhance East Lyme and seeks to carefully balance the need for economic development and land use with the preservation of recreational, scenic, historic, cultural, agricultural, and natural resources. So then it goes into goals, and I'm only going to read number 7, because that's what this pertains to. Number 7 is protect East Lyme's native ecosystems, biodiversity, and maintain the quality of East Lyme's wetlands, watercourses, and groundwater. Next, I'd like to move into the environmentally insensitive area section of the POCD. It's 5.2, page 36. The following land and water areas are considered environmentally sensitive, either because they serve a valuable natural functions or because their improper use will impair the functioning of other resource areas. 5.2.1, aquifers. Within the town of East Lyme, there are 4 stratified drift aquifers and numerous bedrock aquifers, which provide the town with its drinking water supply. The aquifers and their recharge areas must be protected from contamination by chemical and biological pollutants. Reference Protecting Drinking Water in East Lyme Commission for the Conservation of Natural Resources, 2018. The next section is 5.2.2 on page 36, surface waters. Rivers, streams, and inland water bodies serve as conduits and storage areas for floodwaters and therefore should be protected from encroachment and filling, which could lessen their carrying capacity. East Lyme utilizes surface waters for potable water, and these waters are valuable recreational resources and also support animal life. Latimer Brook and Bride Brook both support anadromous fish runs, ellweef in both, and also sea trout in the former. Bride Brook has one of the largest spawning populations of ellweef. Is that me saying that right? Alewife. Okay, in New England. That's pretty impressive. References the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission 2017 River Herring Stock Assessment Update, Volume 2, State-Specific Reports. They should therefore be protected from erosion and sedimentation, chemical runoff, and domestic sewage leakage. Next, I'd like to go quickly to page 11 of the POCD. New requirements of the CGS 8-23 require the plan incorporate sustainability and resiliency initiatives and the identification of areas served by existing sewer systems, where sewer systems are planned and to be avoided. This document updates the expiring goals and objectives of East Lyme's 2009-2010 Plan of Conservation and Development, incorporates sustainability and resiliency through the Sustainable Connecticut Action items, and identifies existing sewerage systems, planned sewer systems, and the areas for sewer avoidance. The POCD provides a legally defensive standard for zoning changes and brings the community further into compliance with anticipated changes to the state's enabling laws. Oh Lord, I'm so tired. Okay, the next one is open space. It's page 43 on the POCD. Open space plans for East Lyme 6.3. Natural Resource Commission Open Space Plan. In 2008, the town established the East Lyme Commission for the Preservation of Natural Resources. Subsequently, the Natural Resources Commission adopted an open space plan for the town, which inventoried and recommended acquisition of land for the preservation of open space. So when we talk about open space, we need the open space for the drinking water, because we all know and we've learned through the experts telling us and just learning along the way that when we have like forestry type situations, it's a natural filter. So it talks about you know, how important it is. That just I just read the first part of it, and then we have another map here. It shows the major watersheds and the aquifers. So the area that we're talking about in the north end of town sits right on top of this, right on top of these areas. And these maps you can get online, and they will be in the minutes as well too. But this is the area that we're talking about, and it names them. We have the Niantic River, we have Latimer Brook, we have Bride Brook, we have all this stuff that falls right on, it's right underneath, you know, the area that we're trying to protect, the drinking water. It says here on number 11 on page 55, maintain open space adjacent to water bodies. Maintain riparian buffers along water bodies and water flows. The filtration of surface water runoff before it enters the hydrology system is vital to the health of the environment. This is true in all towns, especially so in East Lyme due to its proximity to the ocean and intense water consumption during the summer months. That's it. You have anything to add?
That's enough.
Okay. So, in conclusion, these documents that the POCD was formed and the people in the preservation committee that's right here in town, they got together and they had an input on this. So their input was very important. These are, you know, professionals in our town that say this, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to use our zoning so we can, you know, make it to where it's 5 acres over in that. And through the negotiations of it all, we might not end up with 5 acres. If we get 3, then we're happy with that. But we've come to a point now where all this data in our POCD says we have to do something to protect our water for our generation and for future generations. And it says it in here. So it's not just me just saying it. I've read it. It says it in here, and it's very important. I think that this commission should not say no to move forward. I think that we have to at least explore it, and we are trying to get a public hearing so that way we can, you know, leave it up to the public and they can decide, because that's how these things go. The zoning commission, we have a lot of, we have the means and the power given to us from the Connecticut, from the state of Connecticut. We can write it, because in order to do this, we have to remap the area too. And that's all done with the help of a lawyer. I mean, you know what I mean, we have help and stuff. But I think that it's important to know that as well. So, any questions?
I have a few, but yeah, why don't we just go down the row?
I wouldn't mind a public hearing on this.
Okay.
Obviously very important. On the other hand, there seems to be 2 different opinions on the expansion of the aquifer protection zones. Back when it was reduced in size, we deliberated here quite a bit, and we consulted with an attorney because we wanted to leave it as it was.
But it was reduced because of why? I'm
The
curious.
state of Connecticut did it.
It was for Costco.
No, had nothing to do with Costco. This is long before Costco.
Oh, okay.
We wanted to do it. We consulted with an attorney. We were advised that if we expand it to what it was before, and we deny an application because it's in the new, it's not in the new section, but it ends up being in the old designation, they have grounds for an appeal, and we'd probably lose. Now, perhaps this has changed. I'm hearing more and more that it's being done.
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's being done and knowing it's risky, but I'd like to get an updated opinion on that, because that's the second thing we could do here.
Thank you for that.
Did you, do you have a map or drawing that shows exactly what you propose to rezone?
Well, the whole thing of the public hearing is, I have the map of where the stuff is, but to have it rezoned, we have to speak to a lawyer. We just can't do that on our own. Do you want to see this map?
Well, what I'm getting at is to have a public hearing, you have to have a proposal. To have a proposal, you have to show them what it is that you're proposing.
Which we will do, but according to the way Bill Mulholland said we have to do it, we have to get this commission to agree to it, and then we can take the other steps. We can't move any further until we show you guys that it's important to East Lyme to investigate this and to see if it's really feasible or not. And then, you know, with the public hearing and all that, the information comes available. So
a public hearing would be strictly informational with nothing actually proposed?
well, we would propose
'Cause it
something.
seems like a chicken and egg story here. You have to do the public hearing before you can make a proposal. But you don't have a proposal because you want to do a public hearing first, hear what people think.
I'm only telling you what Mr. Mulholland had said to us. So
I mean, if we're going to make a decision about anything, I'd like it to be something more specific. I mean,
think
you can have a meeting with people and hash it out, you know, at the community center or something, not under the auspices of a public hearing here at the zoning commission.
I believe what we're asked to do here is to bless the continuance
yes,
of this project before more time, or before time is wasted.
yep.
So,
We can get those boundaries in 2 weeks, Mr. Foley.
Yeah, I think that would be useful. Before I do any blessing, I'd like to know what the project is.
Okay,
well, we're not there yet.
right.
We're blessing the process.
But you must have an idea because you're talking about rezoning. So
Yeah.
you must have an idea what you want to rezone.
Well, we do, but the first area that we talked about, that came to us, that we thought that there was like 50 houses. Jess did the numbers, and it's how many houses, Jess?
Like 300?
It's over 300 houses.
And
So,
how many vacant undeveloped properties?
we don't know, but
That
the big
would
chunk,
be even more critical to know,
right.
because those are the people that are going to be up in arms when you cut the
Right.
value of their property in half.
So is that something we can find out for the next meeting? Okay.
You writing it down? Nancy?
You mentioned they were doing it in Waterford.
Yeah,
What area of Waterford? or
right up
what-
against the map here that runs along the western part of East Lyme. Their property runs, this is Waterford over here, and right up against us, they have 5-acre lots there. They also have 5 acres in places where you can't build, like
So like
Harkness.
north of 95?
Yeah.
It's along-
Yeah,
it's
north
along
of 95, I read it before.
It's along Butlertown Road.
Yeah, it's north of 95. It's what we consider the north end of town, and it's the location of our only clean, that's not contaminated, according to the graph that we got from the conservation committee that's here in town. It's the only one that's not even contaminated. It's like really good water. It's the only one. So the rest of them are, you know, it shows the contamination in there. So
And is there any way to correlate it tighter, like why 5 acres? And if you zoned it to 5 acres, how would that help the watershed? Or if it's only 3 acres, does that help it less? Like, is there some way to correlate it more to the zoning aspect of
So-
what we're doing?
According to DEEP, if you add 10% impervious surfaces to an area, you decrease the amount of filtration and water quality downhill from that area significantly. So if the higher, let me make sure I say this right, the larger the area that we try to protect by limiting how much impervious surfaces we can put on it, the more water can be filtered, which ends up in the drinking aquifers, which go and feed our wells. Does that make sense?
Yes, if they looked at this. You want to look at this, where you can see where the actual water, it has the legend thing at the bottom where you can kind of see.
And who from Deep have you spoken to, or?
We can't speak to them yet.
No.
We're not allowed.
Okay.
You can read online.
We tried.
Jim, do you have any?
I do, and I realize I'm only here for tonight, and then I'll be there. So, I have some points that I hopefully you can record, 'cause I think they may be helpful. So, the first thing is, when they talked about brining and it said, do they brine? Well, that's when they put those white stripes on the line. They grind it up, they mix it with water, and they spray it down. So I know we do that, and I know Joe Braga is on this email. He does our town. We're probably doing really good stuff in the town. I don't know that, but I would imagine that we are. But the people I think that maybe don't take as much care into the salt is the public. Like I think people just, like, sometimes you go over people's houses and there's just piles of salt on their road, which would come into more houses, more driveways, less houses, less driveways. I don't know if we can regulate what amount of salt people put on their driveways, but I think that we should try to incorporate a public education. So, like, we can regulate what the town does through their roads, but if we could do public education for people, and then if we're doing public education, I would like to recommend that we include fertilizers and pesticides, because I think a lot of people salt when there's ice, but people put fertilizer and pesticides on their yards all year round, and bigger yards, more fertilizer and pesticides. So my recommendation is to incorporate that with public education. And then I think we need to correlate how 5 acres and salt come into play. I think there might be a little bit of a gap there. Only because people might say, hey, listen, if the land's developed, it might be a bit of a gap if we could bring that up. And then the last thing I had was, when you go to a hardware store, you see different types of salt. Like, there's rock salt, and then there's other safer salt and pet safe salt. There's all these different salts. Is one type of salt better for the environment than another, or is one type of salt worse for the environment than another? And maybe we can bring that into public education, because I think that public education is going to be key for this to be successful.
Well, for the town, I can agree with that, but if you read the matrix, this is the matrix. I'll supply this sheet to you since we're talking about it now. It says reduce harmful pesticides and fertilizer use, and then it says what town department, according to the POCD, has the jurisdiction over that, and zoning is not it.
Yeah, right.
It's a public works department, which is not we don't have a ball in that game.
No, and that's why I kept thinking about, because, like, as a member of the public, I didn't know. I didn't know.
Can we ask Ms. Penny?
I mean, it's not
We can't do that.
this is just an update from you. We can't really involve the audience. This is
Okay, I'm
a
just
subcommittee update. You can ask her afterwards and report next week.
Okay. I will get answers to questions.
Now, has our own water department had an input in this at all? I'm just curious.
We don't have to ask them.
I just wondered if
No, we've
They
got the
do.
documents from the state of Connecticut that shows our wells that they test,
Mhm.
and it shows that well 6 is the only one that's clean, and that's the one we're fighting to try to save.
Yeah.
Here's the matrix for all the commissioners here. I don't know if you've seen this or not, because the new POCD has been updated as it's updated every 10 years. This is very interesting information, and it's like really quick. You know, you can look at it and it tells you who's in charge of what. So it's a very helpful tool. I don't know if you guys have all seen the new one yet. It's online. It's a really good.
Okay. So you guys have made a lot of headway, and I know you'll continue to gather some more information for our next meeting.
Okay, is there anybody else that wants anything for our next meeting that they're interested in, that we can answer any questions? Because we have other data that we'll present too.
I just think a map would help of where exactly you're proposing what. And as tight as you can correlate it to the actual zoning change
Yes, Madam
and how
Chairman.
that will help.
Absolutely, we will
Yeah,
get that
yeah.
done. Thank you.
Did you think that looping in fertilizer and pesticides to well water safety would be helpful?
We can't. It's not our, it's Public Works, according to the POCD. We have, this is our guideline, this is what we have to follow.
Uh-huh.
That's up to them.
Okay, gotcha.
That's not a zoning thing.
Okay.
Although it's important, I
Yeah.
think people in the town should know that, but
And Jamie Vaudry from UConn's Long Island Sound Study Group.
and she
How's
got it
that?
online. It's all online.
It's all online.
Yeah. So we'll present that next time. We'll have more facts.
We'll have way more stuff
Yes.
next.
And
time.
hopefully Attorney Bleasdale will be here on the 20th.
That's the key, yeah, we need to make
For
sure, but
any-
there was a part in here that I read, and it says that it's, the POCD is set up, so it's legal. We have, it's, I read, I don't remember the exact term, and I don't wanna.
Legally defensible.
It's legally defensible, and that's the key word right here in this, it's legally defensible, so,
Good job, you guys. Thank you.
thank
Um,
you guys.
New business, is there any new business you all would like to bring up tonight? Okay.
I have something new business, I'm just curious.
Mhm.
You know when you're coming down, in front of Stop and Shop, Norm, you might know this, they took the trees out to put the sidewalks in, but they said they were gonna put the trees, some sort of trees or something back up there. Is there any way we can ask
Bill,
about that?
Bill got
Bill
him to
would
do
know.
something. He
Okay.
mentioned it a couple meetings ago.
We can ask next
Well, because
time.
springtime's coming and spring is for planting, so it'd be nice if they could put the trees back up.
I did not get any correspondence. Public delegations, this is the time when members of the public are invited to speak to the commission regarding zoning land use items that are not or were not on the agenda tonight. Is there anyone here? Yes, sir.
Can I do it from here? Is that okay?
If you, we can't really hear that well from there. Thank you.
My name's David Treader, 21 Brainerd Road. I think this is covered in your POCD, but in October of 21, the zoning board, and I understand why, decided to opt out of the Public Act 2129 for accessory dwelling units. Subsequently thereafter, the Board of Selectmen also decided to opt out. I guess my question is this: there was a lot of talk about researching this, and we're going on 4 years now, and I haven't seen anything done, and I kind of been standing by, and I'm curious if there's any plans, I mean, other than a blanket no.
Thank you for your comment. It's really not a question and answer session, but back then it was about a specific bill in Hartford that we had
Yeah,
to. Yes.
I'm aware of that. But I'm also aware we as a town don't have to follow that act, that we can either do amendments, you know, and change things. And there was an overwhelmingly support, both at the public hearing and at the selectmen's meeting, in favor of it. And it was just thrown out the door. So I would like to see something done. If we could either form a commission, bring this back to the table. I mean, what do I got to do to put this back on the table, put this back on the forefront? Because I think it's a necessary thing. I think it makes sense, and it helps people out, especially in this time. I know this is, for me, it's personal, of course it is. But I also think there's other people in the same boat as I am. And I just can't believe that I pay $12,000 a year in taxes, and I walk in the door and ask for help, and Bill was great. I have no complaints about that, but when you get an absolute no, there's no option. And it's just not really an acceptable thing. Not for someone who has 6 acres, no neighbors, and could follow I could put a 60 by 60 barn up there And we're talking a bedroom and a kitchen. And I guess that's my point. So if you could give me guidance, a way to go, someone to talk to, Mr. Pack, any suggestions?
Yeah. There's two ways to do it. You can get a majority here to pursue it, or an individual can always go to Bill Mulholland, he'll help
Yeah, I've talked to
an
Bill.
individual
Yes.
present a text amendment. Personally, I would say, as you hinted to before, a certain amount of acreage is necessary.
Yeah,
You don't want
yeah.
to do it on half an acre.
No, and I understood. I have no issue with why it was shot down, and I understand that and the whole, by right, and I'm very well versed in public acts and reading state statute. And so I understood it, but I really hope that out of that discussion, we went further, into what other towns have done, or have done well before this act in terms of allowing them in either certain zones or under certain conditions, or, so I was just hoping that I could restart this conversation somehow.
Well, thank you for bringing it up, and
All right.
I'm sure after the meeting, you can talk to zoning people once our meeting's over, if you'd like to wait.
Thank you.
As long as it's not a quorum, as long as it's an individual.
Yes. Let's see. Bill Mulholland is not here
excuse me.
tonight. Oh, okay. Come on up.
Hi, yes, Lisa McGowan, 33 Spinnaker. I just have a couple things. One is, are we still restricted to 2 minutes, Madam Chair? I know it's not give and take, but I just
We
wanted to
don't
make
have
sure.
a crowd tonight, so
Okay, I just didn't know if anybody, and it's the day paper, but in Plainfield, the Board of Selectmen, on their meetings, it was also a zoning meeting. They capped their comments at 3 minutes, and what the complaints were when they capped it was putting all the different rules in place can really impact the public's ability to feel comfortable at the public meeting. So I just wanted to, ask, when we look at the agenda for the zoning, is there a way to know, do we have 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes and 30 seconds, or is it just sort of willy-nilly?
it's not willy-nilly. If, 50 people show up, obviously we have to put a cap on it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you. And then to address this 80/40, the zoning change to either 1, 2, 3 acres, all the way up to 5, I would respectfully ask the board here to be sure that you've looked at the map really carefully before you hire an attorney with the town's money, and make that plan a little bit more tight, like Mr. Foley and Mr. Peck had talked about, Mr. Liska too. Make that plan more tight and more clean and more understandable, not just, comments. And if you could share all your information with the public before you, again, hire the attorney and have a public hearing, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here tonight? Yes, ma'am.
To speak to something that you've been talking about?
It's supposed to be not on the agenda.
So you can't do
Yeah,
it.
I think
She spoke about something that's not on the agenda, so she should not have, because she's talking about, but, so I think since we let her talk, I think we should let Penny talk for a few minutes.
two
I'll be
wrongs
brief.
don't make it right.
I know that, but she I'm wants to sorry, talk. I have some information that might be helpful.
Can you give it to the subcommittee after the meeting, and then they'll report it next
No
time?
problem.
Thank you. Let's see, Mr. Mulholland is not here tonight. Did anyone go to the planning meeting?
February 7th, I'm up, but there wasn't one since then. I'm the next.
Okay, sounds good.
Oh, wait,
Or the
not the
11th.
5th. Is it the 11th?
11th,
February,
I
yeah.
think. It's the
Yeah, the
11th.
yeah.
It's in writing.
All I have,
Get ready to get ready.
Mr. Attorney Bleasdale is trying to be here on February 20th. We can ask him any questions about if we want to recommend to the first selectman to ask for a moratorium on the 830G. If you have any questions, he'd like to get them beforehand so he could research them if he needs to. So if you could email those to Jessica at least a week before the 20th, he'd appreciate that.
I have some question I have a comment about that. The town of Waterford, they got a moratorium granted at 6%. And
Well, it's by points. I mean, we qualify by points, not
Right.
by percentage.
yeah,
but-
like the way it's read, it's like makes it seem like, you have to make this threshold, but you really don't. They take case by case in the way it's written.
Yeah, it's either percentage or points, and we have the points.
So email questions?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes. Just a reminder, there is a short-term rental meeting this coming Monday night here at 7 o'clock if anyone's interested in attending. I think
When
that's
is that?
this coming Monday at 7. It's either the last or next to the last meeting, and then there'll be one last public hearing for the public to give input. Ann Santorum, the chairman or co-chairman, is trying to sum up everything from the past year that we've been meeting and write what she's going to suggest to the Board of Selectmen. So the hearing will be to get feedback on that. So that's all. If anybody wants to make a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All those say aye.
Aye.
It passed.